Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving headfirst into something absolutely crucial, our planet's economic future. We're going to unpack the real root causes of our environmental crisis, and more importantly, break down the incredibly innovative economic models designed to fix the whole shebang. So let's get into it. Here is our quick roadmap for today. We're starting with the ticking climate clock, moving into the take-make-dispose trap, exploring 5 alternative economic models, and wrapping things up with linear versus systems thinking. All right, Section 1, the ticking climate clock. We really have to start by getting a clear picture of the incredibly high stakes we're dealing with right now. 2050. That number right there is our absolute deadline. According to a special report by the IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we have to reach net zero CO2 emissions globally by this date. No excuses. If we don't, we are looking at a catastrophic 1.5-degree temperature increase that will dramatically multiply the risks to human life and the entire natural environment. The clock is literally ticking on this one. Zooming out a bit, let's look at this framework developed by Rockström and the Stockholm Resilience Center. It outlines 9 planetary boundaries, which essentially map out a safe operating space for humanity. But here is the terrifying reality. We've actually already shattered the absolute limits for 2 of these boundaries, specifically biodiversity loss and biogeochemical flows, which is basically the balance of nitrogen and phosphorus on Earth. We are currently operating way outside the safe zone. Moving right along to Section 2, the take-make-dispose trap. Knowing these high stakes, we have to ask ourselves, what exactly is the villain driving this massive crisis? Well, this defines it perfectly. The traditional linear economy. This model has dominated how we produce and consume literally everything since the Industrial Revolution, and it's the primary driver of our current crises, because the whole thing is fundamentally based on extraction without renewal. Let's walk through this trap step by step. First, we take finite natural resources. Second, we make goods out of them. And third, we just dispose of them. Boom. Done. The result is massive resource depletion and a staggering loss of ecosystem services. To really put that into perspective, about 60% of all waste is never recycled, composted, or reused. We are quite literally throwing our planet's value straight into the trash. So how do we fix it? Section 3, 5 alternative economic models. Let's pivot to the heroes of our explainer and look at some brilliant frameworks trying to solve this. First up is the green economy, a term you've probably heard heavily promoted by the United Nations Environment Program. The focus here is on being low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. But there's a catch. It often only acts at a single level, like just swapping fossil fuels for renewables. Because of this, it's kind of become this expensive umbrella term that relies heavily on massive investments and subsidies without always delivering that deep systemic change we actually need. Next, we have the bioeconomy. This goes beyond just energy and shifts us from fossil-based materials toward renewable biological resources. But, this raises a huge question. How do we get all that biomass without competing with human food supplies? Well, there's this amazing anecdote about a company called Novamont over in Italy. Instead of using valuable corn crops to make their bioplastics, they actually innovated by using the stems of wild artichoke thistles that just grow naturally along the roads in Sardinia. They figured out how to use local nature without messing with our food supply. Brilliant, right? Model number 3 is the Doughnut Economy, developed by economist Kate Raworth. I love this one because it's so visual. Humanity needs to operate safely inside the green donut part of the circle. That sweet spot is nestled below the ecological ceiling of our planetary boundaries, but firmly above a critical social foundation. It demands an economy that is inherently distributive and regenerative. See, the inner ring of that donut represents 12 absolute foundational social needs. Things like food, health, education, and social equity. Things every human being deserves. The massive puzzle we have to solve is figuring out how to provide all 12 of these foundations without overshooting those ecological limits we talked about earlier. Fourth on our list is the blue economy, theorized by economist Gunter Pauli. This framework is awesome because it treats nature as our ultimate teacher. The blue economy mimics the efficiency of natural ecosystems to do way more with what the Earth locally provides. In nature, there is no waste. The byproduct of one process is literally the food for another. This model applies that exact same logic to our businesses. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, comparing the blue economy to the green economy. While the green economy often leans on expensive investments, heavy taxes, and government subsidies, the blue economy completely shifts the focus. It's all about local innovation, radical cost reduction, and generating jobs by finding multiple new uses for what's already right there in our immediate environment. Finally, tying a lot of this together, we have the circular economy, championed by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. This framework's goal is to completely design out waste and pollution right from the drawing board. By closing the loops of technical and biological cycles, products and materials stay in use indefinitely. This actively helps to regenerate our natural systems instead of bleeding them dry. Together, these 5 models give us a real blueprint for a sustainable future. Okay, section 4, linear versus systems thinking. Because here's the thing, just swapping one economic model for another isn't going to be enough unless we fundamentally rewire how we think. We really have to contrast linear thinking with systems thinking. For centuries, traditional science has taught us to use linear thinking, splitting complex problems up into isolated, separate little parts. Systems thinking demands the exact opposite. It forces us to look at the wholes, to focus on relationships, and to see the dynamic interconnections between everything. Take this incredible quote from Donella Meadows, a true pioneer in systems thinking. She described it as a way of thinking that gives us the freedom to identify root causes of problems and see new opportunities. That mindset shift, that is the absolute key to unlocking real, lasting sustainability. Think about it like a car. If you apply linear thinking and just look at every part separately, the engine over here, the brakes over there, the wheels on the floor, you literally just have a useless pile of parts. A car only works if all those components connect and function together as a system. Isolated parts don't get you anywhere, but an interconnected system, that drives you forward. And that wraps up our explainer for today. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. As we stare down that ticking 2050 climate deadline, I challenge you to look at the world differently. When you look at the things you buy, the company you work for, or the waste you throw away, ask yourself, are you just seeing isolated parts, or are you looking at the interconnected whole? Because applying systems thinking is exactly how we're going to break out of this take-make-dispose trap and build a future that actually thrives. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.